Facts you didn't know about Elvis Presley. Elvis and Priscilla's relationship would have been illegal today. Priscilla Bewley was indeed young when Elvis set his sights on her, but they went on to marry, and she was the only woman Elvis ever took vows with. Life was a whirlwind for the teenager as she came of age married to the most coveted man in the world. I was kind of lost really in who I was earlier in my life. I really didn't have teenage years, she later said. I learned so much about him and was with him so much that I thought the way he did. Priscilla was only 14 years old when the two met. Elvis was 24. He had a twin. Elvis Presley, the undisputed king of rock and roll, was born on January 8, 1935, in a two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. Evidently, there was another king, as Elvis was born a twin, but his brother didn't make it through the complicated birth that forced his mother to go to the hospital. As a result, his mother never had another child, and she became very attached to her young, future monarch of music. They were so close that when she died in 1958, it's reported that funeral guests became uncomfortable with the extreme amount of sorrow shown by Elvis. Others say he was never the same after she died. Elvis was really shy. There's an age-old question in America, rifle or guitar? Eventually, Elvis would choose both. But at age 11, his mother got the guitar instead of the rifle. She wanted to keep his fingers stringing instruments instead of pulling triggers, though she was only delaying his affinity for guns for the time being. It may surprise some to learn that the ultimate performer was exceptionally shy when he grew up. He learned to play the guitar as soon as he got it and started singing too. He was so good at singing that when he was 12 years old, a local radio station offered him a chance to sing on one of their shows, but he turned the opportunity down for a reason that's very un-Elvis. He was too scared. He was turned down after an audition when he was 19. When Elvis was 19 years old, he auditioned to join a gospel quartet called Longfellows. In a move the judging panel probably later regretted, they turned him down. But that ended up working out for all of us because Elvis had already started recording songs. The previous year, Elvis recorded his first song. He paid $4 to have the song tracked, and it was a gift for his mother. By now Elvis was in Memphis, Tennessee after his family moved there when he was 13 years old. In 1954, the same year he auditioned for the Longfellows, he was about to make an already budding music scene in Memphis rock and roll. Elvis used shoe polish to make his hair black. As legend has it, a local DJ played Elvis That's Alright 14 times in one day. The Memphis listeners loved it, but the only problem was they didn't believe Elvis was white. The only thing black about Elvis was his hair, and he used shoe polish to make that happen. By 1955 Elvis was rising, but nowhere near the household name status he enjoys today. In that same year, he bought a '55 Fleetwood Series 60 Cadillac, his second Cadillac. He gave it to his mother who didn't even have a driver's license, but that didn't stop him from touring in it with Scotty Moore and Bill Black in 1955 and 1956. You can view the pink Cadillac today at Graceland. He didn't write any of his songs. The King's breakout hit was actually an ominous song about a man who jumped out of a window in a hotel in Kentucky. The single's name was Heartbreak Hotel and it was released in 1956. It became his first $1 million seller, and just like every other song he released, he didn't write it. Heartbreak Hotel has simple guitar strings, but it's catchy, and Elvis' voice shows its range from high-pitched wailing, down to his own low tone. While the sound certainly caught everyone's ears, it was really when their eyes saw him move about on TV. His fast-moving, suggestive hips bumped shockwaves around the world. Elvis' first album spent 10 weeks in the #1 spot. Elvis gained another short-lived nickname that stuck around about as long as Jell-O nailed to a wall. We can all be happy that the atomic-powered singer didn't stick and understand that a nickname like that came from the United States at the height of its nuclear testing and in the groupthink of the Cold War. Speaking of bombs going off, Elvis Presley soared into the stratosphere with his debut album Elvis Presley. It was the first rock and roll album to go #1, and it stayed there for an astonishing 10 weeks in 1956. Elvis had hit the ground running and was a star right off the bat. Elvis starred in over 30 movies. Also in 1956 Elvis the Pelvis, and the atomic-powered singer were bulldozed aside as the coronation of the king saw Elvis rule the court of rock and roll for all time. He took the throne, the one that he reigns from even now, even today, pretty much from the get-go. His performances had women in screaming frenzies and critics swooning. In the same year, Elvis was called a savage by a Florida judge for undermining the youth. But what kind of rock star doesn't stir up a little controversy? Writing Elvis Mania, the king ventured into his film career. Elvis was quite the actor. He went on to star in over 30 films in his lifetime. Elvis always asked Priscilla to do this. Despite their long relationship, and indeed, marriage, Elvis asked that the love of his life to always look her best and to uphold his idealism of her as a perfect beauty. No sweats and ice cream pints for her. Later in life, Priscilla also revealed that she wore makeup around him 100% of the time, and he didn't want to see her get dressed or do her hair or any of the other things ladies do to look their best. According to Priscilla, Elvis liked the mystery. Knowing the competition for her man was fierce, Priscilla obliged. Elvis helped eradicate polio. In 1955, a scientist named Jonas Salk finally invented a cure for one of the world's worst diseases, polio. But after a year, doctors were still having troubles getting teenagers to take the vaccine. They needed someone they loved to take it, and do it in a very public way. Prior to his performance on The Ed Sullivan Show, Elvis posed for the press and got a polio vaccine from doctors. A photo like the one above was published in the New York Times the next day. Incidence of the disease went down 90% between 1950 and 1960. Nice job, Elvis. Elvis was really into karate. Elvis would have been a great soldier to serve with, and his generosity gained him fantastic fanfare. He bought everyone in his unit an extra set of fatigues and donated all of his army salary to charity. He wasn't just a music star anymore, he was turning into America's son. Women loved him, men wanted to be him. While in the army, Elvis also got seriously into karate and studied the fighting style of Cheeto Ryu by his instructor Hank Slomonsky. Elvis would take the stage after his tour and use his moves during his acts. Before he left Germany in 1960, he was so good that he received his black belt. Career power moves. Priscilla was concerned that her lover's career would suffer from him being a regular soldier. She wanted him to go into the special service, which isn't for the inept, but a place where he could do performances for the army. He would also have contact with the press, and enjoy safeties that weren't afforded to other soldiers. But Elvis had a manager that was top-notch and clairvoyant, and correctly determined that if Elvis did his time in the service, it would make him immensely popular. Colonel Tom Parker would have the king's back through thick and thin over the years, and Elvis trusted him throughout his whole career to point him in the right direction. Colonel Parker came from a background in carnivals. Parker was Elvis' most trusted confidant, and played a big role in taking Elvis to the top of the charts. But his background was a little fuzzy, and because he worked as a carnival promoter before the music industry, he seemed like an unlikely candidate to enjoy so much success. Oftentimes Parker would refer to Elvis as my attraction, as if he were part of the carnival. Once upon a time he also painted sparrows yellow and sold them as canaries. As much as Elvis liked him, Parker was a shady man, as when Elvis died it was discovered Parker was taking in half of what Elvis made. The Elvis Sandwich. Elvis was a big-time fan of food, and given how his body looked toward the end of his life, it's not a hard fact to believe. It's more what he ate that was his downfall than how he ate it. He was fond of the fool's gold loaf of bread, which was hollowed out and stuffed with peanut butter, jelly, and a pound of bacon. He was such a fan of peanut butter that he had his favorite variation of the sandwich named after him. His grandmother later shared her recipe in a cookbook: 2 slices of bread, peanut butter, sliced banana, and bacon. No judgment here, as that just sounds good. He had one daughter, Lisa Marie. In 1961 Elvis hit his stride as an actor and played the title role in Blue Hawaii. He also produced a #1 single with the song Can't Help Falling in Love with You. He did the same thing with the song Return to Sender the following year in the movie Girls. 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 He was dominating the entertainment business. But something was missing. After 7 years of courtship, Elvis and Priscilla finally tied the knot, though rumor has it that it wasn't their call. They had their only child together shortly after, a daughter they named Lisa Marie. But after they had a child, Elvis became distant from his wife, and the couple called it quits by 1972. Elvis was a little trigger-happy. Elvis may have gotten a guitar when he was 11 years old, but when he became an adult he finally got that rifle he wanted, and a whole lot more. Elvis loved guns and carried them around frequently. Tom Jones even remembers when Elvis carelessly left a pistol in his dressing room for anyone to take. A girlfriend of Elvis named Ginger Alden even recounted a time when Elvis fired a gun at a TV set. She also recalled a time when he fired a bullet into a headboard as she slept. He apparently did it to grab her attention. Let's just say Elvis' reasons for firing got pretty casual. Falling from fame took a huge toll on him. Elvis was a successful film star, but his absence from the music scene saw his celebrity wane. Other major bands such as the Beatles, Queen, and the Rolling Stones were topping the charts, and rock and roll had exploded onto the mainstream, in large part due to him. The king wasn't about to sit back and watch his throne be taken. According to reports, sometime around 1968, Elvis took a walk down a busy Los Angeles street and no one recognized him. He had come a long way from girls fainting and crying when they saw him. It was enough to cause him to relaunch his career, which he did with his television concert titled Elvis. Elvis liked to dress up as a police officer and pull people over. Giving Elvis a badge was probably a bad idea. He loved to dress up as a police officer and pull people, mainly women, over to give them his autograph, being the first person in uniform to hand someone a ticket and say, "You're welcome." And those autographs were worth something, so rather than paying, the unsuspecting motorist was coming up. Priscilla is said to have disapproved of the practice, and a lot of other aspects of the king's life. In 1972 the two were divorced, much to the happiness of women across the country. It's rumored that Elvis would allow good-looking girls to enter Graceland after hours, and one night, there were 152 ladies, waiting outside. White little chapels and shotgun weddings. "What happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas," is the slogan adopted during the king's reign in the desert. In 1964 Elvis starred in a movie called Viva Las Vegas, and recorded a song of the same title, of course. In the movie, he got a quickie marriage to his co-star and Margaret, and ever since wedding chapels have adorned the area around the Vegas Strip. Though we can't say that's the exact reason Las Vegas became the eloping, to put it nicely, capital of the country, the release of the movie timed up well with the explosion of shotgun weddings. Elvis and Priscilla Presley were even married in, you guessed it, Las Vegas, long before the quickie wedding became somewhat of a tourist attraction. Some people believe he faked his own death. Elvis left the building for good on the night of August 16, 1977, at the age of 42 in his bathroom at his home in Graceland. Mystery swirls around his death and theories live on to this day, that he faked his death to escape fame, a common thread with musical legends, such as Tupac and Jim Morrison. But Elvis' lifestyle had finally caught up to him as he died of a heart attack, and toxicology reports indicate over a dozen different drugs in his system. The king had recorded over 600 songs in his career, and his style was so unique he is perhaps impersonated more than anyone on the planet. He broke down barriers that paved the way for future rock and rollers and lived one hell of a life in the process. There's been no one like him before or since. Long live the king. Dear viewers, do not forget to subscribe, like and comment for the development of our channel. Stay with love.